So how do Africans view themselves, ourselves, and the soil upon which we live and work and dream? On this Africa Day, whose theme is promoting and appreciating knowledge in and from Africa, we discuss the meaning of being an African in this moment with Dr Vusumuzi Sibanda, the president of the African Diaspora Global Network. Good evening to you, Dr Sibanda, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. And we've had so many terms over the years applied to us as Africans, Africa rising, for our prospects for peace, profit and progress. What would you say defines Africa right now?
Thank you very much. Good evening, good evening, listeners. Look, for me, I think the is that when we talk about or the outlook that we have as Africans at the moment, I think it is a definition is being imposed possibly, by other people than what we want to be seen to be, because every day we are not achieving, the goals of those people that are real, seem to be daring to dream to see a better Africa, especially when you look at what is currently happening in Africa. I mean, how, there is regression rather than progression. South Africa being one of the countries, that's been seen as holding the torch in terms of development. You see, the problem that sees South Africa, for example, that it is also in the footsteps of the other sister country that achieved and attained independence a long time ago, and it can no longer be spoken about. So when you're talking about Africa and African, for me, and unfortunately a lot of people think that maybe, we're being too negative. The issue is that, we are not what we're supposed to be, and we are not moving towards direction. Because look at today when we have got Africa Day celebrations. We've got a lot of people that, attend these, and it becomes an event, but can we have meaningful, tangible progression in the development, in the democracy, in the economics of the African continent? I don't think we have that. We are far from that. We are worse off, than where we should be today.
Well, what should we be doing then, if we're not doing what we're supposed to do?
Exactly. That's a very beautiful question. I think, that is very important that we should maybe be looking at and asking ourselves is that, there is an African adage that is, and it's also in English, that we are stronger when we are together. Now, our togetherness as Africans, especially, fostered and led, maybe, given guidelines by the African Union, you can see that this is not the togetherness that really brings in the change. The concept that says, I am because you are, is not really applicable to us, because if it was applicable to us, we would as Africa really desire to be one to the extent that, our politics, our economics is resolved when our leaders meet, for example, at the African Union, they'll be taking to task those countries that seem to be lagging behind, or talking about the very initial concept of, OAU in 1963, which sought to see Africa becoming one, because we have got good examples like in the United States. Now, this is a superpower because of the oneness. I mean, the European Union is very strong. The USSR was a superpower, and unlike what it is now, when it had all the states that were together. Now, if as Africans we get to a point where we realize that there should be no African country that should lag behind, we should not enthuse people, make our leaders to be excited by being presidents of failing countries. Let us have, one leadership, maybe one president as an example, for the whole of Africa, so that the plan for Africa.
The reason I'm laughing, and sorry that it turned out to be an interjection, Dr. Sibanda, is, if we look at political infighting in a single country when it comes to elections, this concept of choosing one president for a single country, can you imagine trying to create an opportunity where there's a single president for an entire collection of, 54 countries, depending on how you slice it up across the continent?
Exactly. So now look at, I think that takes us back now to how do we define ourselves as African? Because look, we should really be able to introspect and look at ourselves and say, what do we deserve? What is it that we want? I mean, if we have got so much infighting because of the power, and yet we are the people that are led, yet we cannot lead. Remember, as democracies, constitutional democracies, the ordinary people should be the kingmakers, and they should be the ones that employ politicians and give them direction. But it happens the opposite way, because the politicians are the ones that are chattering the plan and guiding us and leading us into these infighting, instead of us saying, look, this is not our agenda. It is these politicians that have got an agenda of fighting for power, and we don't want this. Because imagine this the fighting that takes place, what we have seen, for example, in South Africa, in local politics, at municipal level, provincial and national level. And we then look at the different countries in Africa and all that. It can only show that we need to begin to accept that there is something wrong with us as Africans, and we need to address it. We need not shy away from that, because the more we shy away from it, the more we are not acknowledging, we are in denial that we have a problem. And because we are in denial, we cannot fix it. We need to accept that we have a problem, or we are a problem. And how do we solve that problem? So that we can have an identity that shows that there is a certain level of humanity in us. Sadly, the colonialist apartheid leaders, predicted doom when Africans would be at the helm of, leadership. And it looks like this is what is happening. And is it because they are sabotaging us, or it's because we are sabotaging ourselves?
And if only we had more time to talk about this, because there's such deeper themes about what is scuppering Africa's progress and why unity across borders seems so elusive when we have so much at our disposal that capacitates us to do that, and then to, create the prosperity and peace that we should have. That was Dr. Vusumuzi Sibanda, the president of the African Diaspora Global Network.